I've been in such a transitory sort of headspace personally. Um, we had moved homes, my family, in June, and then soon after we had gone on our family pre-planned family vacation, and then we came back to Canada, Calgary, and then we finally handed over the keys to the old home. We had to do some more kind of final things, and then now there's still furniture being delivered to the new home even as of today. And so this last month and a half has been multiple times, but just very transitory. So I'm very looking forward to the remainder of this summer, just kind of settling down a little bit and getting a grasp of trying to understand what I've gone through over the last couple of months.
So that helps explain why we haven't had any new episodes in the last couple of months either, eh?
Apologies on that.
I've been super busy too.
Yeah, it's always something, always something. We've talked about Korea in the past, and Korea really is just a placeholder for myself because of the natural family connections. I think it relates to a lot of, everybody else can have a very similar sort of analogy, right? And it doesn't even have to be another country. It could just be, going back to Edmonton or Vancouver. But you always look back and you try to think about what I did and what I saw. And is there any learnings? Why did I go there? I always found that travel was a way to get other perspectives, right? You don't have to go very far. 3 hour difference. You and I have different perspectives on things, and evidently very different weather, even for that matter too, right? It affects us, and we all, and trying to have some empathy and understanding where we all sort of coming from. And so, nevertheless, I had a great time in Korea. Family trip. Kids learned a few things, I hope. But yeah. Aside from the food and the culture and lots of visitors, I think after everyone goes to Japan on a direct flight from WestJet, at least from southern Alberta, the next places people are looking for is Korea, Dublin, places like that, Rome.
So yeah, just take your pick from YYC.
Yeah,
it's Korea, Japan, Dublin, Barcelona, Rome, London. And then we in Edmonton here, we get our few flights to Amsterdam and maybe Iceland every week.
Sao Paulo now, we'll see, right?
Like Sao Paulo, yeah. It's really becoming
Abu Dhabi,
like a huge hub in Calgary.
Not just for tourism, of course, but those flights are also based off of economic ties and trade. What's traveling in the belly of the airplane.
What irks me a bit about the choices that the airliners make when it comes to giving Calgary a whole bunch of connections and giving Edmonton almost nothing is when I'm sitting in a backyard on a nice summer day and looking overhead, I can see in the afternoon one flight after another from Calgary to Europe passing right above us, or even potentially the one to Japan, I think might come close. And, seeing we're geographically closer to both areas, Europe and the Far East. And on top of that, we're a lower elevation too. So lower elevation makes it easier for planes to land and take off. So, come on, let's at least give Edmonton some extra connections here. But I'm totally digressing here.
Yeah.
Back on topic with Korea.
It's relevant. There's relevance. I'm sure you're not the only Northern Alberta Edmontonian that expressed that, right? So, but yeah, in Korea. So, like, one of the things I saw, and it's topical, and I try to tie it in. Like, was I going to go on a fact finding mission to figure out, the boots on the ground investigation into Samsung and SK Hynix and what they were going to do? No, not necessarily, but I just kind of wanted to pick up some anecdotal points. I did drive on the highway and went across a massive new build of a fabrication facility, multi-billion-dollar, that was up right beside the other one, right? And you could see the activity that was happening. Long lead time, like an oil sands plant or anything of that nature, right? An LNG facility. These are multi-year sort of projects that require a lot of capital investment, a lot of integration among different various levels of government, and are an economic reason doing them. So, did I see people trading or looking at their stock, screens on the subway? I did, right? But
so is there a lot of that? Is it more so there in terms of, is the retail investor way more engaged there? Maybe to the same extent as the retail investor was to tech stocks back in 1999. Is that what's going on there? Because I'm going to bring up a chart in a second here, and it's pretty astounding what's been going on here in South Korea.
Yeah, small examples, I think so, right? But I don't take the public transit necessarily in Calgary. I walk, right, and I got to drive around. But do I hear other parents talk about certain tickers or companies Saturday morning at the hockey arena or on the side of the soccer field? Yes, I do. Right? Do I hear about other people, friends who or other who are starting to invest or buy options on their phone? I do. But is the zeitgeist about joking about SK Hynix and how if you're working at SK Hynix, all of a sudden you're immediately more dateable or more in a more worthy of a relationship because you've got huge potentials for profit sharing and whatnot. Yeah, there is some of that. So culturally there is that, and it's because the two largest companies in Korea are memory chip makers right now. At least they're trillion-dollar companies, even in U.S. dollars, and it just so happens to be aligned with what is part of the AI capital spend that is happening around the world, even in North America. And one of the big bottlenecks is memory, and so what was heightened here, even in North America, when you're talking about Micron and all the hyperscalers and all the money that's going into these facilities, money that's being loaned even to doing so, and then some of the key components are just happen to be mainly over here, right? And then a little bit over here, there's TSMC as well, right? Don't forget, right? And so just because it was collectively, the capital markets it's been such a focus point, it became even more focused in Korea because the 50% of the market cap of the publicly traded companies is in one industry and in two companies. So, yeah. So there was some of that. But I had if I broadly speak about a husband of a relative of mine who happens to be working for a division of Samsung. And they said, yeah, even within that company, because there's multiple arms, it's a big conglomerate, right? What is happening in Samsung Semiconductor isn't necessarily what's happening in Samsung handphones or Mobile or Samsung, consumer TVs, right? And so there is a very wide range of outcomes or wide range, and even like clashes of culture and feelings and emotions, obviously, when one division is doing extraordinarily well and is profit sharing hundreds of thousands of dollars to their employees potentially this year, and these other divisions are not. So even internally, there's a little bit of a tension, and that, in a larger scheme, that tension is probably also rolling into the broader society because, the zeitgeist, like I said, again, is driven by these two names. And if you're not part of these two names directly, you're going to be trying to be part of those two names through investments. And if you don't have, call it $10,000, what you're going to do, you're going to put in $1,000, you're going to lever up 5 times and buy a 2x levered ETF. So you're 10 times levered, right? So they try, people have, and it's reasonable or at least explainable as to why.
So it's interesting what's happening in South Korea on the markets there. And that's why I was kind of asking, is there a greater, I guess, animal spirits going on there in terms of how crazy people are going after stocks? I'm going to show what the markets there have done in just a second here. And for now, I just pulled up the iShares South Korea ETF just to corroborate what Justin's saying about two big companies really dominating that index. You can see here that nearly half the index, and probably a few weeks ago, it might have been more than half of the index, is two companies, SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics, two big chip makers, right? A lot of memory chips is what they do.
Yeah, and the third name, SK Square, is a holding company that mostly owns SK Hynix shares. So you might as well add that third one in too.
So that's like more of that. And then you've got all these different Samsung subsidiaries looking down the list here, eh?
Yeah.
And another interesting thing too is, up until recently, there was no way to actually purchase these stocks individually as a North American investor. You have to invest in them on the South Korean exchange.
Yeah.
I believe now, just recently, there was an ARD made available.
EDR, American Depository Receipt for SK Hynix, that came out. And
which didn't really help the stock price, right?
Well, the interest was there, right? And this was right around the same time as the SpaceX IPO as well, and what high, right? So, again, we're not immune to it in North America and these sort of things.
There's a lot of interest in owning South Korean stocks, and they were up until a certain point this year, I think, just blowing everybody away in terms of being like a top performing market. Just looking here at the last,
still is.
Probably, yeah, year to date. This is the last 30 days, and I'm not sure if this reflects today fully yet. I think I saw headlines that this morning there were a couple of circuit breakers on their markets. So basically what was happening here during the pandemic is basically happening right now in the South Korean markets
Yeah,
from what we hear from afar.
minus 30
But
something. But if you pull up the 1 year or the year to date chart,
yep,
right,
year to
it's
date
it's
looks
still
wonderful. Yeah.
it's still pretty
And
good, reasonably speaking.
something to be, to be mindful of too, as average investors, you might think, well, I'm not an investor in South Korea. Most of us have some kind of emerging markets component in our portfolios. And that emerging markets component, when you think emerging markets, you might think, oh, I own like some factories and in developing economies, some Chilean miners, things
Vietnam
like
or
that.
Chilean, yeah,
But
yeah,
largely, you own three companies: Taiwan Semiconductor, SK Hynix, and Samsung. They've
yeah,
become absolutely massive. They're not just
yeah,
massive emerging markets companies; they are the biggest non-American companies. Right? If we look at
yeah.
that's like sort of market cap
Yeah,
size,
excluding
and
some of the mainland Chinese companies, but you're right.
yep,
And
they're up
and
there
so this
too.
concern, yeah, this concern about like diversifying. The idea is that you want to diverse internationally. We've talked about diversification, right? Having different exposures from around the world. Getting broad exposures. But then I'll call it ironic, but you look at any emerging market ETF, even whether or fund, passive or active, and those three names are going to be in the top five, if not the at top 10. They have to be because they're part of the
Yeah,
benchmark, right? The broad, you can go specific, right?
and it's been live by the sword, die by the sword for the South Korean investor. We
Mm-hmm.
see for the last year they're up 100%, 200% if you cut off on June 22nd. That was the high point.
Yeah,
Um, and and that's not unusual given just what those types of stocks have done this year. If you look on the American side, what Nvidia has done, what has Micron done, things like that. Of course, Taiwan Semiconductor has also gone up a lot this year. It's just you have a market that is so concentrated in these things. And then, yeah, you're talking about leverage investing, Justin. I mean, you get this whole FOMO, I missed this and I want to see a good return on my investments going forward. So I'm going to make the next 50%. It'll turn into 100% if I own a double leveraged ETF, right? Is that how that works? Or that's the
yeah,
thinking behind
yeah.
that?
That's the thinking, and it's
The thinking,
universal
anyways, yeah.
again, right?
Yep.
I mean, let me a quick paint a picture idea, right? Like land in Seoul, right, is outrageously expensive. Real estate is outrageously
It's
expensive.
getting exactly like Japanese real estate in 1989, right? The Emperor's
Canada,
Palace is worth more than all the land in
yeah,
California.
yeah, but yeah, even the middle class people like ourselves who are looking to buy a home, a first time home, who want to settle down, move away from their parents, or what have you, start a new life, build a something with a and so GTA, downtown
Mm-hmm.
Toronto, Lower Mainland Vancouver, right? We've gone through this recently in Canada. We
And they're going through that
prices
in
have
Seoul.
gone down, right? But what did people have done? They've either moved farther away, right, to your Hamiltons, to your Langleys, which they've done in Korea as well, right? Move farther away. They've got good subways. They can get to where they need to go, right? But the commute time's a little bit longer. But to try to find, but there's people who are outpriced, right? They cannot buy, and so then there's this nihilist or sort of thought process of potentially, like, I can't afford a home. Like, what am I going to do? Well, I might as well YOLO it on something and get, and try to earn or get a return so that I can buy this place. Or maybe this is the way I accrete and grow my own wealth, is to do it this way, right? As opposed to not having the down payment or the equity in order to be able to purchase a place, right? And so again, similar stories, similar analogies playing out. Similar reactions, slightly different tools. So all in all, yeah, it was a really good trip. The weather turned out to be a lot better than I expected, actually, despite it being a
It's good.
rainy season over there. But unfortunately, it sounds like there was rainy season in Edmonton that happened too, right?
Rainy season here, yeah. And you guys haven't gotten much in Calgary, right?
No, not. I mean,
Do we have a lot of
earlier in
rain
the
in
spring,
June?
but not to the extent that you guys had in the recent weeks. It's hot and dry right now here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a summer like I've never experienced in my life here in Edmonton. And I just think back to all those summers when we had kind of drought conditions and we're just praying for some rain, or, I'm having to water my lawn every couple of days. I haven't used my sprinkler is still in my garage. I haven't taken it out. I haven't taken out my patio furniture yet at all. It's just, if I put it out there, it's just going to get rained on and then blown away by the next torrential land hurricane like the one we had on Saturday. which you might have seen some of those videos from the Post Malone concert at
Yeah,
Commonwealth, where
I saw some
people
of
are
that.
huddling in the concourse, and it just looks like, I mean, you can't see outside. I can imagine the fear these people had. Like, is it a tornado or what is it? Like, it was literally on Saturday a land hurricane. I looked out my window in my house, and you'd see rain blowing across the street, the same as those videos you see when there's hurricanes and there's news reporters standing there getting blown away.
Mm-mm.
Like, I don't know what is going on. In terms of total rain, these numbers are from a few days ago, so they don't even include, we got a little bit more rain, another 10 millimeters yesterday. But for the summer so far, 511 millimeters of rain in Edmonton, the most ever by about 100 millimeters. The previous record
That's
for the
half a
3 month
meter.
summer. Yeah. Like the previous 3 month record was 417 millimeters from 1953. And we're at 511 millimeters. It is July 29th as we record this. And we still got August to go. June, we had 264. So the rainiest months ever in history. I think there was one rainier month, like 100 years ago or something. Number two is June with 264 millimeters. And number three is this July so far. I don't have that number on hand right now. Calgary so far this summer has gotten 121 millimeters. So we've gotten, we're pushing on 5 times
Quarter.
as much.
Yeah.
So, talking about weather and, we've seen, oh yeah, Monday there was a massive flooding right around the Mutter Conservatory in Edmonton,
I
if
saw a
people know where that
picture.
is.
Connors Road,
Saw
right?
picture, videos. There was a video online of a bus. They took the risk and went through it. It was a Strathcona County bus, probably the bus right before
You
mine.
would. I was gonna
I
say, is
took the
that the one
same
that
bus
that's the
home,
line you
same
take,
route,
right? Same route.
but it went through probably maybe half an hour earlier. And they made it through, and the bus, was brown water sloshing around inside the bus. Hopefully the engine was okay and no permanent damages to the bus. My bus, because that road was blocked off then, my bus took a detour getting from downtown Edmonton to Sherwood Park. We detoured all the way to Grote Road Bridge, University area, massive, 1 hour. So that was Monday. Yesterday, Tuesday, there's news again of another, orange warning, risk of tornadoes, risk of extreme thunderstorm. The office couldn't have cleared out faster here. People were just going home just because we don't want to be here when the storm hits and then get stranded here. But it actually ended up not being as bad yesterday, luckily. Now, interesting sort of analogy here. My family, my dad, my sister, and our relatives in Austria, we've got this WhatsApp group. We've been sort of sharing what's going on in our lives. And over the last couple of months, we've been sharing some news about the weather here in Edmonton. And for one, my sister lives in an area north of Sherwood Park where recently, back in June, some of the road washed out when we had a whole bunch of rain, and it just the little creek in her neighborhood turned into a river, just completely washed out the road. And of course, the relatives, they see this, they think it's like a massive disaster here. And I told them about the flooding yesterday. And they're actually, so seeing all this, they're just basically getting some anecdotes of, some of the extreme cases here and there. To them, it probably looks like Edmonton's turning into a disaster zone to the point where they actually changed they're thinking of potentially changing their trip coming up in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, so
Really?
they're visiting Canada, flying into Calgary, of course, because Calgary has the connections, and intending to visit the Edmonton area for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
But now reconsidering, do they want to be in an area with tornadoes all over the place and big, floods everywhere? And Elk Island National Park is closed right now because they've got trees knocked down all over the place.
Mm.
It kind of reminded me of the analogy of the markets. The markets have been pretty okay in the last while. It's been a while since we've seen a big drawdown, a big, recession, bear market, or anything like that. But that will come again. And whenever it comes, people they take this view, at least some retail investors take this view of things are really bad. I better get out, or I better avoid investing, or I need to do something about this now, without ever really thinking about the long-term implications and what it really means for your retirement plan. And I've always brought up this kind of analogy of, when you're looking at the markets, think of the markets sort of like a string that's pegged to a board. And That string goes from bottom left to bottom to top right. Name your time horizon. Maybe it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, typically from bottom left to top right. That
Mm.
string can go every direction along the way. You can pull it up and you have a really strong market, followed by, obviously, what the Koreans saw recently, a big drop. Or if the markets are weak for a while, that can be followed by a bigger increase. The thesis being that at the end of the day, the peg way off in the future, that is going to be wherever it's going to be, and that what the markets are worth in the future is what markets are valued at in the future. It has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on today. So if there's a big, huge bear market right now or in the next couple of years, that is not going to have any impact on what stock prices are in the year 2040. Stock prices in 2040 are whatever they will be. So in the shorter term, we look at if we look at the weather, yeah, there's probably some short-term impacts on weather. Probably the reason we're having all this rain right now is because it keeps evaporating and then coming down and hitting us again. But in 2 weeks, there's absolutely nothing saying that just because the weather is very inclement right now, or it was in the last few days, last week, has absolutely zero bearing with what the weather will be in the middle of August. So why someone would decide their future plans for a couple of weeks from now based on exactly what's happening right now, that's kind of beyond me. And again, market-wise, why someone would kind of change their willingness to take risk in the markets in a 30-year time horizon based on what's happening today, again, it befuddles me, but it happens all the time, and it will again when the markets crash again.
Undoubtedly. We're people. We're not immune. We're not robots, right? If I'm driving to Edmonton, I think I've talked about this before too. I know I'm going to get to Edmonton. It's probably going to take me about 3 hours, right? At any unique time of that journey, how fast I'm going, or if I choose to stop at McDonald's in Red Deer for 10 minutes instead of going for 20 minutes, or just doing a quick coffee run or washroom break. Ultimately, I'm going to get to Edmonton. And but that journey can be very different for people. And how you approach it, do you go at 100 and then all of a sudden go 130, or you go 80 for a while and then you cruise it and you just don't stop and you don't look and you don't stop in gasoline alley, right? Yeah, but the emotions of it and seeing things move up and down, and seeing this big semi truck in front of me that's not changing lanes, and like getting annoyed at it and just like, hey, move it, right? Or there's a speed trap there, or maybe there's an accident that blocks things up, that gums things up for a while. I'm still gonna get to Edmonton. Might take me a little bit long, but then I can always catch up a little bit here or whatever. And maybe that's not exactly the best example to use, but the idea there is that I know where I'll be at the end of the day. Stay the course, right? And we've talked about this all the time. It's that the time in versus timing. It's not easy. It's not. But again, conversations are there to keep the behavior in place to make sure that we stay focused for that long term, the end of that yarn, as you talked about, right? I don't know if there's been any other thoughts on your side about how to approach that these days.
It's just about making. We always talk about this analogy too. When you're driving, making your planning your route, and you want to take the risk if it's inclement weather and you don't want to run off the road. You drive appropriately. You drive a little slower. But again, the key thing I've always found throughout my career is actually just having this conversation with someone in the industry earlier today who also joined around the same time I did, roughly 2008-ish. And again, what I found early on is, the timing of when I entered the industry in 2008 couldn't be more perfect, because I worry if I'd have joined maybe 5 years earlier and sort of joined right as the markets were going through a bit of a 4 or 5 year bull run. That was around the time when the credit bubble was inflating and everyone was buying subprime debt and stuff like that, and of course the stocks that were selling that stuff. If I had entered the industry sooner, it might have gotten into my head that maybe I can be a really good stock picker. Because at that time, and truthfully, when I started investing in 2002, mostly in 2003, I did get this overconfidence because I was buying stocks and they were going up, and I thought I was a genius. I joked about this before. I put my 2003 performance on my resume when I was looking for a job in 2004 after graduating.
That's right.
I just kind of really cringe at that thought, having something like that on my resume. And again, there's a lot of young people entering investing these days who trade stocks, trade tech stocks, whatever, and think they're geniuses because their portfolios keep going up. Eventually they'll get their lesson, but it just hasn't happened yet for many people. So yeah, when I started in 2007, 2008, I learned right away the importance of financial planning. I had a couple of dozen clients and they all had financial plans and they were invested for the long term, most of them anyways. And when the markets crashed, they were in the right investment mix. They weren't fully in risk, so they weren't down 50%. But also everyone was down a lot. They knew that they had a retirement plan that was X number of years away and that they could weather this downturn. And again, if I hadn't started when I did, I might have become more of a stock picking type person as opposed to a financial planning person, because I learned the importance of financial planning. So you shared an interesting article with me here. How mental accounting shapes our financial choices, and it was on the St. Louis Fed's website. So mental accounting, obviously very interesting, both in just the fields of behavioral investing as well as in financial planning. We encounter that a lot, just the way people account for money in, money out, what pockets the money in, buckets, strategies, things like that. I find just as a general, day to day, I spend way too much when I'm spending on credit card because I'm not, there's no endowment effect. I'm not spending money that I have in my pocket. My wallet's not getting thinner, but I'm spending money on a card that I know I'll pay off anyways at the end of the month. And then, to contrast that, whenever I'm on vacation, I usually just use cash. A lot of places like Belize obviously doesn't do credit card in as much as often, or they charge extra fees. So I'm using more cash in my wallet, and I find I am way more stingy when it comes to spending. When I'm basing my spending decisions on cash in the wallet, even though it's all the same to me, you can always go to the machine and get more, right?
Yeah.
But still, I'm just so much more stingy.
There's a good line. It's from the behavioral economist, Nobel Prize winner, I think Richard Thaler, and it's we think of our money as being in different pockets, as we mentioned earlier, but the economy doesn't, right? A dollar is a dollar is a dollar, and but how we react to it, and to your point, it's again, it's whether we do it for mental buckets, my vacation budget, my food budget, my rent budget bucket. I got to make sure I put into here and then here and here. It is interesting. Like last night, after I had a soccer game last night, and I just had one drink, and the bill came, and I was just going to put a $10 bill on the table, and I was just going to cover the tax and the tip and the drink, and because it was on special. But then she came around with the machine, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll do the machine, right? I'll keep the $10 bill, I'll keep the cash in case it's for something else, and then I'll use my credit card. And then, you do the same thing, you go through the motions, and end up being incrementally more than what I would just put, if I just put cash on the table. And, it's an interesting little reminder example, just last night, like I said, of how that credit card, you just don't think about it. Like, yeah, okay, I'll throw in a number, it's a percentage, and it ended up being a little bit more than I expected. Again, I'll pay it off at the end of the month, but it's just like, you do treat things differently, right? My children got I got a gift, got a monetary gift for my extended family, and they said, use it for your vacation. Kids, you don't give it to mom and dad. You guys use it, right? And so then I loaded their transportation card, which they can also use at the convenience store with some of that money, so they can go and buy it. And said, hey, you know what? This was a gift from great uncle or whatever, and go use it for your vacation, right? We don't need to squirrel it away and put into like a college fund or whatever. Like, no, they gave it to you to go use and go treat yourself, right? And they spent it, right? And it just how you do it, right? And we see there's other examples. You're every year the tax return refund. If you get a tax refund, right? I think people treat that refund very differently, or reckon
it's easy to spend.
Or do they save it? Do they realize that it was actually just more taxes that were deducted than there should have been a year ago, right? But then I can use this now money to go treat myself on something, or whatever the case may be, right? Maybe they do reinvest it all. Not everyone does, right? But it was income before, and now it's treated as windfall or something from the government. I don't know if you have any other examples of how you do that mental accounting. You talked about vacation versus home and cash versus credit, but is this something that we just need to recognize and say that our dollars, how we get it, even though a dollar is a dollar in the economy, how we treat it can be very different for each individual and even for yourself?
Certainly can be different. For example, you and I, we were at a golf tournament last week, our Battle of Alberta get together in Red Deer, and our
Mm-hmm.
team won. And we Justin and I are not. I don't think either of us are really low
Not at
handicap
all.
golfers or anything, right? But we had a guy on our team who had a handicap of 3, and he won it for us. Thank you, Dan.
Team effort, though.
Uh,
Team effort.
Team
We all
effort.
contributed.
You absolutely did with that amazing chip shot that got us the eagle on a par
Yeah.
4.
I'll
Anyways,
ride
what
that
I'm
one for
getting at here
years.
is our prize. One of our prizes was a Starbucks gift card, and I
Yes.
used my Starbucks gift card right away on Monday. Bought myself a coffee, and I was thinking, should I get a cookie, chocolate chunk cookie? And I saw them looking at me there, and I liked that cookie with my coffee, and I didn't have a big
Yeah.
breakfast anyways that day, so I
Okay.
got the cookie. Again, it was free money, gift card money. I didn't have before. I
Mm-hmm.
spent it differently
Mm-hmm.
than I would have. I'm
Mm-hmm.
already buying a $4 coffee. Um, if it was my own money, would I have gotten the cookie? Probably not. But here I am spending money that was found money. It was not a huge amount, $20 gift card, um, and I got that cookie. So does that does that fit perfectly into the mental accounting analogies? Other one I was kind of
Yeah, it
thinking of
does.
too. The sunk costs. This it's still July. It was the beginning of July. I think the Oilers traded away a Darnell Nurse, and here's a guy who was kind of a sunk cost for the team for many years. All the money in that contract, 74 million over, is it 8 years? Just yeah, a hard contract to trade, and until we finally did. But do you keep trying to develop this guy, try to hold on to him, hope he does better? You've got all this sunk cost in him, or do you trade him for something fairly trivial? We got a decent return for him, but
Mm-hmm.
that was something that Oilers GMs have struggled with for the last couple of years, and finally someone pulled the trigger, and we got a good trade for him. I think again, mental accounting, asset management, it all kind of comes together.
I think if we all recognize that, yeah, and it's not a bad thing at all. Like I said, if we can budget accordingly or treat things accordingly, again, dollar is a dollar is a dollar. But if I receive a dollar as a gift, or my children do, or the versus the one I earn it, yeah, there's a tangible difference in how I treat it, and I recognize that, and I think we should all recognize it's a good thing, right?
As we sort of progress in our careers and our building wealth journey over, going from being a teenager to now, it kind of has gotten harder in a way. If you think about it, if you were living paycheck to paycheck, as a young person just out of university, whatever, you're not too concerned about your retirement planning or anything like that. You don't have any real money built up. You're living paycheck to paycheck, or even carrying a balance in your credit card. Uh, it's easier in that way, isn't it? Because then you're not really thinking of, I have this bucket of money to spend, and having to keep yourself from spending it, right? Because if you're just basically spending what you have and then paying off your credit card, whatever,
Mm,
um, you just basically spend money until you run out of money, right? And whereas
yeah.
when you actually have money saved up, you've got an RSP, you've got a bunch of money in a TFSA, technically you can go out and buy a new car. But should you? And now you have to think financial planning, and how is that money bucketed? And I can't use that money to buy a new Audi, that type of thinking. So, right, don't you think it's gotten harder? Like when you have money, it's gotten harder.
No, no, actually, coincidentally, no, I think I meant, yeah, the transitory part of my life.
No,
The keys to the old house were handed over yesterday, in fact.
you
So,
sold it good.
um,
All right.
yeah, the mortgage is back to reasonable levels, but and I'm hopeful, the new owners will enjoy the neighborhood and what have you. And I got to look forward to the new neighborhood
Yep.
for ourselves in the new home. But yes, Yes, more money, more problems, right? It is
Yeah.
universal. It is across all different stages. I wouldn't say socioeconomic sectors, right? But complexity, I think, is one way we look at it too. Is complexity, right? Yes, simplify. Oh, I got to pay off my student loan. Oh, I got a rent to pay. I got a car bill, a car loan I got to pay off, and whatever I got left over, I'm going to buy food for me to eat. And then if there's something I left over, that maybe I'll go to a movie or whatever the case may be. All right. And
Simpler
then, yes,
times.
simpler time. And then as life continues to move on, change of job, relationship status changes, right? Having these buckets can be a useful mechanism in how you understand the money coming in is very important.
Yeah.
I hope you get good weather. I don't know what else. It's
Uh,
ripping hot. It's gonna be 35 degrees this weekend apparently in here in southern Alberta. So, yeah, stay cool. I hope you get
yeah,
some of that weather.
we've actually got some sunny days and then more rain on the weekend. And rain in the forecast is always seek
You must have
shelter.
the greenest grass in all of Canada right
It
now.
is very green. Yep. Yep.
Who needs to go to Dublin? Just go to Edmonton.
This weather actually is reminding me a lot of I was in Belize in 2022 for a week where every single day it was sunny throughout the day and then an absolutely torrential downpour at nighttime. And of course, there it's completely normal. Everything is set. I mean, it's the rainforest where I was, and
Mm-hmm.
they're used to
Mm-hmm.
that. They've got corrugated
Mm-hmm.
metal roofs that can handle all the rain, and
Mm-hmm.
it all flows away somewhere. No, nothing gets destroyed because of rain. Um, but yeah, we're not we're not so much used to it here in Edmonton. 2 times leveraged rain, literally.
I hope Heritage Days, the festival, goes well despite the
Yep.
forecast. I miss it. I wish I can't go up this weekend. But yeah, if you get a chance, eat some meat on a stick and tell me how it goes. Because I believe, are they not back at Horlock Park?
Yeah, at the newly renovated Horlock Park. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
It's just the pictures, but it's supposed to be pretty nice. One of the things I've been meaning to do is ride my bike to Horlock Park, and it's so rare that I get a chance to even go on a long bike ride because there's the chance of a storm or I have to work during the day. Every weekend is pretty rainy, but yeah. So we'll include some links on the blog post that goes along with this episode to the article we were talking about, and maybe some charts of Korean stocks. And we'll endeavor to record another episode maybe before the month of August is done, and kind of leading into the new Oilers season and fall when kids are back in school and markets get busier, get more
Life gets
potentially more
busier.
volatile.
The start of the real new year. Enjoy the
Yep.
month of August. The last bit of July in the month of August. And yeah.
Hope we get more
Yeah.
sun.
I hope so for you too as well.
Any views discussed in this podcast are those of the presenters or any guests and not necessarily those of Canaccord Genuity Corp. Statements expressed herein are not intended to provide tax, legal, or financial advice, and under no circumstances should be construed as a solicitation to act as a securities broker or dealer in any jurisdiction. All views expressed are intended for general circulation only and do not have any regard to the specific investments, objectives, financial circumstances, or general needs of any individual, organization, or institution. Investing in equities is not guaranteed, values change frequently, and past performance is not an indicator of future performance. Investors cannot invest directly in an index. Index returns do not reflect any fees, expenses, or sales charges. Please do not hesitate to contact us should you want to know more about anything discussed in this podcast. CG Wealth Management is a division of Canaccord Genuity Corp., member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization.